You don't know who I am.
Good morning,
I
folks.
know
We are
all
live.
about you.
Just trying to make sure you guys can actually
I've
hear me
come to
this
talk
morning.
to you tonight about the
Hold on a quick
things
second.
I've
I am
seen.
having a little bit of
Come to set the
I think
record
you guys can
straight.
hear me, but I can't hear anyone else.
I've come to shine the light on. Let me introduce myself.
Okay. Good morning.
I am the
I'm guessing everyone can hear me. Good morning, Irvin. Thank you guys so much. Do look like my speakers are actually unplugged or something here. So just making sure that you guys can hear me. Duran, Krista, Melita, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I can't actually hear anything on this end. So I'm going to just check my speakers a little bit later on. They could actually be off. Alric, good morning. Carmelie says she's not hearing. Can anyone else on Facebook confirm with me if they are able to hear me? I want to make sure that everyone is good to go. Not seeing you. Yes, that's fine. I'm going to actually make myself visible on 1, 2, 3. And there we go. All right. So you should be able to see me and hear me. We can hear you. I'm hearing you. Okay, so Carmelie, you need to probably just refresh your your connection. Good morning, Instagram followers. I appreciate you guys logging in. We've got quite a bit of ground to cover this morning, so let's just go ahead and get started, I would say. There's a lot going on, as you guys can expect. And, yesterday I did the morning session. Unfortunately, I was not able to do the evening session. And then I was supposed to have one at 11 o'clock that I had to cancel because we unfortunately had an unexpected death in the family. So I had to take some time off. And, it's going to be a challenging couple weeks ahead. About weeks ahead. When you lose people, it's a challenging time thereafter, really. My condolences to my husband. It's my husband's family. And it's just going to be, which is my family, of course. But, it's going to definitely be a challenging time ahead for everyone. So thank you all so much for your condolences. And it's unfortunate, but life and death are intertwined. And unfortunately, give me 1 second. I just want to turn on my AC, which I can do remotely. It's just one of those things where we're reminded at times like this how fortunate we are, despite everything, but also how quickly life can change from like 1 minute to the next. There are absolutely no guarantees in life. You're here 1 minute and you're gone the next minute. So that's why we all have to really try to make the best of it as much as we can. Because that's just how life is, to be honest. And so many of us don't even, we don't even live to be 65, 75. So I think anyone who is fortunate enough to make it that far, they've been blessed in many respects. So it's more about trying to look at the positive in situations like this. But yeah, very, very trying times for sure. And as a country, as a world, we are in for some super trying times. You know, it's not going to be easy no matter how you cut or slice this. It's going to be a challenge for all of us. And at the end of the day, I don't know how many of us are really prepared for this. And that's probably my biggest concern, is that we're actually not prepared at all on so many different levels. Like companies that you think, right, these companies financially should be stable. You know, they should be like, if you're at the top of the food chain as a company, as an organization, your stability and how you treat your employees, what you do, has a trickle down impact on what's going to happen throughout this community. So, for example, if you are able to, like CNB, you know, give your staff $1,000 to kind of give them a little bit of a head start, that helps them with all of their other expenses. That helps them if they are renting to maybe get a little step ahead. Maybe they're the landlord. Hopefully, that allows them to pass that Cayman kindness onto somebody else. And I want to start first with this landlord issue, because this is really weighing heavily on me. And I think a lot of people are really only going to think about themselves in a time like this, and that isn't what we need. We need people to really get together and honestly think about other people right now, as well as yourself, because obviously you got to look out for yourself, but it's not just about you. Like I said yesterday, if you're the only person in the world who ends up surviving this, being the only person left isn't going to be of much use to you. So, we need to be very, very cognizant of the fact that everyone will have trying times, some more than others, but we're all here for the long haul of this. Give me 1 second. And so, as a result, I just want to encourage everyone to do your part. Trying to help people out if you can. I know some of you are landlords and you have tenants. Maybe you have 5 units, 10 units, I don't know. And your tenants may be here on work permits. They may be Caymanians, whatever the case may be. It's entirely possible that they are not going to be in a position to pay you the full rent, especially if they are in tourism or in services that are going to be impacted by this. So right now, some of the hotels, as we heard yesterday, they, like the Westin, are going to be paying staff for 30 days. Some are going to be assisting with food. So they're going to at least try to make sure that, because a lot of hotel workers, when they're at work, they eat. So they don't necessarily budget or even have the funds. They're not getting tips. They may not be making the best salaries in the world. So at least getting that 1 meal a day at their place of employment is something that could be extremely beneficial to them. So I want to take my hats off to all of those companies, the Westin, let me fix my collar here. The Westin, the Ritz, I don't know if Marriott is doing it. I haven't heard that they are. But any of the hotels that can and are doing so, we certainly appreciate the Cayman kind gesture. A lot of people feel like government should be stepping up and government should be forcing people to forcing companies to do certain things. Like, people are having to use their vacation and their sick leave. And then they're like, well, after that's used up, then what? Then what do I do? And unfortunately, at this particular time, government isn't really prepared to step in between what they consider kind of private relationships. They're like, listen, the labor law still applies. So in one instance, I can't remember which hotel, but I understand one instance they actually released the workers, gave them severance pay, and then paid them for like every year. So per the law, they got like 2 weeks severance, and then they paid them for every year that they've been employed with them. So I think that that's helpful. Duran is reminding me about touching my face. Don't worry, Duran. I have been self-quarantining, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And I have also been washing my hands like you would not believe. And I just washed my hands before I came here because I knew that I'd be getting probably a little bit teary-eyed and whatever. Yeah, but that's good advice. So, we saw a letter that a landlord sent out to her tenants, basically saying, listen, you need to vacate the units because I'm not in a position to not have my rent paid. Now, I don't know who this lady is. I don't know anything about her personal situation. Like I said, we all have situations. So all of us will be struggling with paying bills, potentially, and all of us will have to think really quite hard about how we're going to get through the last couple days, not couple days, but the next few months, of this situation. So I don't want to speak on her particulars because I don't know her business. But when someone sent me this letter, I thought, oh, wow, this is so unfortunate. Because we're not even 1 week in. Today's Wednesday. The government made the announcement last week, Thursday, about our first confirmed case and started to talk about, some of the measures. And of course, yesterday and Monday, additional measures being taken. So if we're already 1 week in and people are understanding the long-term implications of this, and they're going to be huge. And already you're thinking, well, I can't pay my bills, so you got to go. The first thing that came to my mind is I don't know what kind of mortgage obligations this woman has, but I wondered, had she already reached out with her bank? Had she met with the bank to say, listen, I've got these apartments. I have a mortgage on them. I have my house mortgage. But, this is the situation, and everybody knows what the situation is. The banks are well aware of the situation. The premier has already said that cabinet has spoken to the banks, and they have indicated that they would be willing to work with people on a one-on-one basis. So if you're going to have issues with your mortgage, you need to go in and have a word with them. So that's the sensible thing to do. And I don't know if this woman has actually done that or not. But I get the sense that because of the timing, I kind of feel like that hasn't been done. And the first response is just to tell people to get out. Now, what is the point? And in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the letter is on our Facebook page. And I just have to wonder, what is the point of telling your existing tenants to get out if, in fact, you don't have anybody else to rent. And this is the situation that we're in. Right now, no one is going to be renting from you because everybody is in a pickle. So this isn't like it's just the expat workers that are going to have an issue, or it's just the Caymanians that are going to have an issue. We are all in this same boat together. We're going to sink or swim together because over half of our population, or roughly half of the population, are expat workers in some form or another. So this is when you really get to understand the implications of having a workforce and a community that is largely, by and large, a mixture of both Caymanians, some of us born Caymanians, multi-generation Caymanians, other of us who've acquired status, have Caymanian status. And then you've got a workforce that is, a lot of the workforce are foreign nationals who are here on work permits. And we rely on those people and they rely on us. It is a relationship that sometimes gets tense, but it's like a what's the word when you have a host and what's the other word that I'm looking for? Not really a parasite, but you guys know what I mean. You have two entities that rely on each other in order to survive. And so she needs tenants. I'm sure of that if she has apartments. Her tenants need a place to stay if they're on island. So she makes reference to a meeting that government had on Monday, which she says employees to which our permit holders are being laid off. If your place of employment has laid you off, you're not able to make your rent payment. Please note that government is asking these persons to return to their homeland. They will have until the 22nd of March to leave the island. Therefore, the airport will be in lockdown. So those people know that already. I mean, I don't even know why it was necessary to make that point to them. The premier made it very, very clear on Monday. And I want to say this again for the benefit of everyone here. If you are on a work permit and your work permit is canceled, which should happen if you're not employed and you do not have a job, you have to leave. You can't remain. There's no option to stay here for 2 months and not be in a work permit. That's actually against the law. So the cabinet and the premier, they're having to implement certain emergency pieces of legislation during this time, but there are existing pieces of legislation that they cannot circumvent. So people are asking him questions about, for example, work permit situations, what do they do? And he said, listen, remember that there is the immigration law, and as such, you need to make sure that you are following the immigration law, just like employers are obligated to follow the labor law. These laws are already in place. So you have to follow them. There's certain laws that, for example, the visitors, if you're here and you need a visitor extension, they're waiving all of that. So you don't have to apply for an extension. But you do need to make preparations to leave if you have no other business here. So if you don't have a work permit, you're going to have to return home on an interim basis at the very least. So all of those things are already in place. So she doesn't really have to tell people that, I don't think. But she goes on to say this is a serious matter and should be taken as such. And again, I think the world around understands that. I am not able to support any tenant on my property, so please make arrangements to leave if you're unable to make rent payments. I'm sorry, but I'm in no financial position to make payments to neither CUC nor Water Authority for any tenant. Okay, so let us assume that she has a mortgage on this property. Don't know if she's spoken to her bank. Let's say, for example, tenants are even in a position to pay you 50% of the rent for the next 2 months, pay their utilities. Again, I don't know how many units we're talking about. I don't know how many tenants we're talking about here. Some tenants have said to me, not her specific tenants, I should be clear, but just tenants in general. My utilities are only, $50, $100 because I live by myself. It's a small place. I don't have a whole family, Caymanian. Some of us have utility bills are like $800, $1,000, almost another mortgage. CUC has already said, and the Water Authority has already said, they're not going to disconnect people during this time. So it's not like she is in an immediate dire situation where she has to be fearful of getting disconnected. So work with the utility companies. And this is where us now is, if you're a landlord, try to call the utility companies and say, listen, yes, I've got these 5 units. And let's be honest. If you are a person with a good payment history, so you have always been paying your CUC bills on time, you've not been disconnected in the past 6 months, you've not had any issues, CUC is going to work with you. They are not going to just be like, well, now the entire world is in a predicament. We don't care about that. We want our money. We're just going to shut you off. They're not going to do that. And they've already expressed to the premier that they're not going to disconnect people for the foreseeable future. So even if you're in arrears right now, which has nothing to do with coronavirus, CUC is not going to disconnect you. So landlords, please have a little bit of compassion. Speak to your tenants just like you should be going to speak to your banks. We're asking financial institutions and banks to have compassion on us. Should we not then be Caymankind and pass that compassion on to other people? I mean, you can't, on the one hand, seek a benefit for yourself and then be selfish and not pass that on to anybody else. That's just wrong. It's selfish, and it says more about that individual than anything else. So I hope that, someone sent that to us. We shared it. I hope that this landlord will rethink the strategy. And then the worst part about it, in my opinion, is who's going to rent her place now anyway? Like, your tenants leave. The only thing that's going to do is alleviate them using electricity and water. Where's the influx of renters? Who do you think is out there running around looking to rent your place? Like, honestly. Yasmin, that's right. CUC and water, so they're not going to turn people off. So I don't even understand the logic behind sending this letter or sending this email. So Eddie has a different opinion. He says a reason for eviction of people who can't pay their rent is that you don't run up utility bills, which are the responsibility of the unit owner, as well as reduction of wear and tear. Further, during times like these, people self-medicate with alcohol and other drugs, which causes another set of issues. But like I said, I don't know her and I don't know her tenants, but that is an assumption on her part. I mean, has she even tried speaking to her tenants? Most tenants could probably still pay utility and water and maybe a reduction in the rent. Again, it obviously depends on how much rent they're making, what their salary is, and so on. But some companies are in a position to continue paying people at least for the next 30 days. Trevor James, thank you so much. Symbiotic relationship. That was the word that I was looking for. Andrea, I agree with you. You can't collect rent from an empty room. But as Eddie says, maybe she's not thinking about collecting rent from anybody else. Maybe her position is simply that she will not have to pay utilities on those units. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Some of the IG comments, let me just have a look here. She is terrible and have the gall to tell them that they have to leave the island no later than the 22nd, which, by the way, I mean, if they're not working, they know what the position is. They know what the law says about having to vacate, and because the airport is shutting down. So especially the ones that have been posting no kids, now they now have no one, period. Hey, good, I see you working. Hey, God, I see you working. Wiz, yes, you mean a symbiotic relationship. Thank you. Canadian government is ordering all Canadians abroad to return home and offering assistance. Yep. Someone said a she cartel sing about dirty landlords. Someone else said, reminds me of the parable of the rich man who forgave the man who owed him a lot of money, while the man didn't forgive another man who owed him even less money. And does anyone know anything about a private sector pension freeze? Haven't heard about that one. Okay, so that's one issue. I do want us to go over a little bit of what we missed yesterday because we did not have a show last night. And again, my apologies for that. But let's just have a quick word. So hotels by and large have to close because, listen, airport is closed and the country is on lockdown for at least the next 3 weeks to see if we can contain the situation. So far, we still only have the one confirmed case. Tasha wants to know if hotels who are closing are going to be making their supplies available for sale, whether it's cleaning supplies or food stocks. I think that's actually a good question. Not sure about cleaning supplies because they probably should use this time now that, they're practically empty to go through and properly disinfect and clean all of their units. Like, one good thing I must say about this break that we're going to all get is there are ways in which we can utilize it to our benefit. So for hotels that have thousands of people in and out, do a deep clean, a deep infectant, so that when you reopen, hopefully you have no traces of any kind of viruses there. Have your filters clean, have the air quality checked. All of these things are really important because someone said to me last night, they're skeptical about the government shutting down the entire country when we only have the one case. Like, they feel like there's more than one case here. But I keep telling people, listen, just because government only has one confirmed case here, that does not mean that we only have the one case. And in fact, statistically speaking, it would be near impossible for us to not have other people here who are infected with the COVID-19 virus. Whether they are infected and haven't been tested because they only have mild to moderate symptoms, or they're asymptomatic, which is entirely possible with the coronavirus. So they have no symptoms at all. And apparently those same people who are asymptomatic, who have no symptoms, are still in a position to infect other people. We have tourists in and out, foreign nationals in and out from every single country in the world. The UK, which has had infections. I'm sure we've got Chinese people here. As we know, one lady was under self-quarantine in, I think it was January, early February. We've had people from the UK. Did I say the UK already? The Philippines, the USA. All of these countries have infections. Miami, we have almost 500 kids that are going to be returning from the UK here in short order. And we're going to talk about the whole self quarantining thing in a minute and why that's really important, especially for our returning students. So there are more than ample opportunities for other people in this country to have this. We just don't know. It's not yet confirmed. So the idea is let's not wait until we have 12, 15 cases to say, oh, shit, we need to shut down our borders. Let's do it now to try to contain what we have. So the hotels that have shut down, the Westin, trying to remember who else, the Marriott, all of these hotels, Little Cayman Brac Resort, sorry. This is your opportunity to start disinfecting your units, doing a good deep cleaning. As individuals, we could be doing a deep cleaning of our homes, the areas that we're in contact with. You're going to have a little break. Some of you are working remotely from home. This will give you the opportunity you've always been meaning to do an online course. You've always been meaning to learn how to knit. Guess what? You're going to have some extra time on your hands. Your kids are going to be home. Keep them in a structured environment. Make them do their schoolwork. Give them stuff to do. Give them chores to do. We just have to be a little bit creative here and focus on those types of things. So I want to just encourage people to use this opportunity wisely. Someone said, well, why don't the hotels use their facilities as like free housing for their tenants or their employees, sorry. Who otherwise may not have anywhere else to go. The only two things I'm going to say about that is, number one, having a lot of people in close quarters goes against the self-isolating principles and the, self-quarantining principles that we're all supposed to be engaging in. So if you have a hotel full of people, and these hotels can hold 500, 600 people, and those people are all congregating in a dining hall for breakfast and sitting areas and eating areas, and that's not what we're trying to achieve here. So social distancing cannot be effectively exercised in certain facilities. And unfortunately, hotels fall into that category, just like a cruise ship. That's the reason why this virus spreads so quickly on cruises, because you are in such close quarters with other people. Now, I just read yesterday that they are discovering more and more about COVID-19. And they have just discovered that depending on conditions, COVID-19 has the ability to actually remain in the air. So not just on surfaces and not just by direct contact. And this makes it even worse in terms of its ability to spread. So it's one thing if it's on a surface, because then you don't touch the surface. You don't have anything to worry about. It's another thing if I have to be in physical contact with someone who has it. So they're within that 3 feet non-social distancing space. Those things I can control really, really easily. How do I control if, because Cayman is a humid environment, that COVID-19 is actually going to stay in the air. And I'm walking through that air. I have to breathe that air. That's a little bit of a different situation. So keep that in mind, right? As we continue to move forward with this situation. Duran says, not CNB, for example. I know of a person who reached out to the bank and the bank informed them that because they have a fixed mortgage rate for 2 years, there's nothing they can do to assist, although the premier said otherwise. Now, that's a good point. And I'm curious about this. And I would love to reach out to CNB and all the other banks and welcome them to make individual statements. As a bankers association, they have collectively said that they will be working with people when it comes to servicing their debt, so servicing their loans. Now, I want to encourage people that listen. If you work for an organization, say you work for an offshore company or you work for a law firm, and you're going to be continuing to work as usual, but maybe remotely from home, and you're still getting paid, don't be running to your bank just as a reason to try not to pay your mortgage. Number one, it doesn't really help you because even if the bank says to you, go ahead and pay just your interest, you got to make up that payment at some point. So it's not like you're getting a free month. What you're getting is a delayed month. And at some point, that payment will still be due. So keep that in mind, that it doesn't really benefit you to run and seek to not pay your mortgage payment, especially if you can afford to do so. But having said that, I know when the interest rates were like going up like crazy, now the Feds has dropped it to literally nothing. The banks were constantly increasing payments to make sure that you could pay off this money that you borrowed from them, right? And a lot of people were seeking out this whole fixed mortgage rate. So that at least for the foreseeable future, of course, none of us saw this coming, that they could know with certainty what their monthly payments were going to be. And so they've got locked into these fixed rates. And so if the bank's position now is that because of the way in which your mortgage has been organized as a fixed rate mortgage, there's absolutely nothing that we can do to assist you, as Duran said, despite telling the premier and the cabinet that they would be willing to work with people. That is something that people need to know. I mean, people need to know how this is going to work. And I think it should be incumbent on the banks to make that type of announcement so that those of us who are on a fixed rate mortgage would know exactly what the implications are of that type of situation. And the banks also know this. If you start to get behind on your mortgage payments, you miss a payment, it is near impossible to catch up. This is one of the bit of of quandaries with when you have a mortgage or a loan. The second the bank notices people getting behind, and this happens a lot, it becomes impossible because of the way that interest works and because of the way that your payments work. It's hard because if you can't make one payment, the next month you say, I'm going to double up. How realistic is it for you to actually double up? I'm a little bit congested this morning. So that's also something that is in the back of the bank's minds. Obviously, they have obligations. They borrow money, they loan money. That's the business that they're in. In order to loan money to people, they have to make sure that their books are in order and that people are paying as well. So someone was inquiring about whether or not on that particular situation, if rent was all inclusive. And again, those are the details that we simply don't know about that woman's situation. So that's why I don't want to say a whole lot to her particulars, because I don't have those details. So Teresa says, it's unfortunate, and I only have a single mortgage for home. I'll be moving to another financial institution as soon as I can. So I missed the comment before that in terms of why she's doing that. Now, I do want to address something that Teresa says, because I think this is important. When I hear the banks in particular are not treating their employees right and are not treating the consumers right, I am beyond disappointed. And I think for me, it definitely does impact how I view a bank. So, for example, CNB gave their staff $1,000 from Friday. Go out, do some shopping. They're offering flex time. So, a lot of workers are only going in to the office twice a week. Those who can work from home are working remotely. Staff mortgages, and I don't know, like I said, what they've done with consumer mortgages, but I do know that with staff mortgages, after the federal government, the Federal Reserve, in the US dropped the interest rate, CNB informed their staff, which is hundreds of people that are by and large Caymanians. Some of them are our family members, they're related to us. So this has a trickle down, like a serious trickle down effect. They've informed them that they were dropping their staff rate on their mortgages to something like 3% or whatever. No other bank has done that I'm aware of. So as a consumer, when I hear those things, it makes me want to support a bank like that even more when I had the opportunity to do so. So kudos to CNB, hats off to CNB. Those are some of the measures that I'm aware of that they have taken so far. I want to talk next about the food bank. And we have 180 people listening right now on Facebook and another 41 on Instagram. And I want you guys to please step up to the plate when it comes to the Cayman Islands Food Bank. Jasmine says, immigration are giving extensions to people, and some people are still able to pay rent and utilities during those extensions. I'm going to explain what those extensions are, so I want to be very clear about what immigration is actually doing. And yet landlords are still throwing them out. Makes me disgusted. And for those who can't pay rent, how are they supposed to pay for a plane ticket? And what if they have nowhere to go? Not everyone keeps a home back in their home country. The lack of humanity is disgusting. Makes me want to never recommend for anyone to come live or work in Cayman again. Hurts my heart. Caymankind is apparently not a real thing. Olive, thank you so much for the compliment. There are some, Jasmine, some logistical things that are happening as well in terms of immigration. So we're going to go through some of the new developments and some of the announcements that were actually made yesterday as well. So the food bank. Let me spend some time talking about the food bank. The food bank here in the Cayman Islands was set up about 2.5 years ago, I believe. because it was one of the first events that Kim and Monroe attended after we got started. So this would have been like June, July of 2017. And the whole idea behind the food bank is the grocery stores, churches, and others got together, formed this nonprofit organization where people can make donations to the food bank. It's like a central location. They receive food, and then they can, through community churches, disperse food out to the needy. And this is a wonderful service that they provide, obviously free of charge, to the community. And they feed a lot of people, and especially a lot of elderly people rely on these services. They work closely with Meals on Wheels to make sure that our elderly community has enough to eat. And there are a lot of elderly people, and they have instructed or said to me, especially in the District of East End, who unfortunately do not have anyone to ensure that they get regular cooked meals or access to food every single day. So they have run low on supplies already. This is going to have a huge trickle-down effect on the entire community. So I am begging every single person who's listening to this right now, go through your pantry, see what items you have in there that you do not need or you're not going to be using in the foreseeable future. Make a trip to the grocery store. Spend $25, even $10, whatever you can afford on canned goods, or buy a gift certificate or a voucher from the grocery store of your choice to make sure that these people have the food supplies at the food bank to then disperse out to the community. Children also rely on these services. I have recommended people to the food bank when they were unemployed, had no food for their children, and had nowhere else to go. So now it is our time to step up to the plate. They need gift certificate or vouchers, rice, dry or canned beans, any kind of pasta sauce, because these things are easy to cook and easy to make, right? Canned vegetables, chili, soups, stews, stuffing or cake mix. And the reason why they ask for a lot of these goods is they can then, Meals on Wheels can prepare the food, or they can give it to the individuals if they're in a position to prepare the foods on their own. So you don't have to cook the foods. They don't necessarily want cooked foods that can go bad and have temperature control issues and that sort of thing. Because, the grocery stores have been criticized for a long time. Like, why are you throwing your foods out when you could just give it to, somebody else? But one of the issues with that is you take on the liability of giving food that hasn't met the correct temperature controls or has, been sitting there all day long to people at the end of the day. And there are concerns about, I'm afraid I'm going to have to blow my nose. I'm sorry. There are concerns about that, right? I know it sounds like I'm catching something, but it's just my sinuses are like in overdrive. I think because I was crying earlier, your sinuses start to drain and whatever. So, right. So applesauce, canned meat, chicken, tuna, cooking oils, olive oil, canola oil, whatever, crackers, herbs and spices, canned or dried fruit, any kind of snacks, chips, granola bars, anything like that, the elderly can just open up, their kids can open up and eat. instant potatoes, powdered milk, meals in a box, nuts, peanut butter, cereals, juices, teas, coffee, noodles, tinned spaghetti or pasta, any toiletries, deodorant, soap, holiday treats. Listen, I know I have stuff in my pantry that I haven't used, and the chances of me using it during the next month are probably slim to none. So I'm going to go through today. There's two things I want to do today: clean out my pantry and clean out my daughter's room for any clothes that are now too small for her, to donate that to other people who might be in need, particularly right now. So I'm asking every single one of you to do something similar. If you don't have anything in your pantry, run to the grocery store, grab a gift certificate, run around with your cart, pick up a few items. Your items can be dropped off at warehouse number 51 on Sleepy Hollow, unit number 11. Sorry, at a warehouse, 51 Sleepy Hollow, I guess that's Drive, unit 11. The First Assembly Church of God, which is right, where the roundabout is. The gym is on this side, the church is over there. 195 Old Crew Road, from 10 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday. You can call Miss Marie Eden at 916-8006 or Philip at 926. I'm going to put these numbers up on the screen for the people on Facebook so that we can make sure. Let me just pull this up on the screen so that we can make sure that these persons are getting precisely, what they need, especially in a time like this. So we all have difficulties. Some people, their difficult times are going to be a lot more challenging, and it's like a matter of life and death than the rest of us. So please, if you're in a position to give anything at all, give Philip a call at 926-6111. All right, so that's Philip and his colleague as well. Just want to make sure that's coming up on the screen. Okay, so there we go. All right. So that's a personal plea on behalf of the Cayman Islands Food Bank. They work silently behind the scenes, like I said, to make sure that there are people who are getting fed. So Eddie says probably something, I don't know what that means, is that you are openly saying that you don't have the details, but yet you are vilifying her. Well, what I'm saying is everyone needs to be conscious of the fact that everyone has a situation, including her, Eddie. I've said that. But if you have multiple apartments and multiple units, if you can't pay your mortgage obligations and you tell people, well, get out of my apartments, you have to leave, you're an expat worker. I mean, they're going to have to leave if they're an expat worker and have no job anyway. So there's no need for her to tell them that, first of all. Their employers would have informed them of that. But, you're going to have an empty apartment for 2 months or more. Yes, you're not going to have wear and tear in your apartment. And yes, you will not have any utilities to worry about. But you also have no income coming in at all. Most people have, when they're charging rent, and I know the rental market in Cayman is absolutely ridiculous. Most people, when they are charging rent, they're more than paying for the mortgage and the utilities. Let's just be honest. The rental business is not a charity. People are looking to make money. And that's what they're doing. So whatever rent she's paying, I'm pretty sure whatever rent she's charging is covering her utilities in any event. So yeah, you may not have any utilities, but you're also not going to be making any money at all. And if she's happy to be in that situation, I think a lot of people remember that when they come back to the island, try to rent again. So someone on Instagram wants to know why the supermarkets can't donate once in a while. Well, actually, the supermarkets are part of the charity and they do donate, but the need is great. And so, on the one hand, we always want to put the burden on, the big corporations. Well, DART needs to save Cayman. Foster's needs to do this. They need to, and I agree as corporate entities that they have a role to play, but I do not believe that the entire burden lays just on them to do every single thing. So DART must fund every single project in Cayman. He must fix the dump. He must, build all sorts of accommodations for us. He must do this. He must do that. And he gets the most hate of any entity in the Cayman Islands, but yet our expectations of him are so incredibly high. And then you must make sure that all of your employees are paid, full salary. You must do this. It's like corporations have their role to play. Individuals also have their role to play. If every single person in this country right now put a little basket together of 4 or 5 canned goods, a little bag of beans or whatever, this issue of the food bank being low on supplies disappears. We don't live in a world by ourselves. We live in communities and we need each other at times, and other people need us. And there are times when we give, this is a symbiotic relationship again, and there are times when we are in need and people will assist us. So right now, what I'm saying is, if you're not in immediate need, please give. Someone is asking, can animals get COVID-19? I'm glad you asked that question because yes, the first dog that got it has actually died. Just yesterday, someone sent me this. I was so saddened to hear of this situation. But apparently, this poor dog was the first case. It looks like a Pomeranian. That they recognize that, yes, dogs can get it. And yesterday, there was confirmation that the dog passed away. So, they think that this actually started in bats. So it would make sense that if it was already in animals anyway, or at least reptiles or whatever, and it could transmit into humans, then it could probably transmit into just about any kind of domestic animal or not. Which, by the way, yesterday I heard that China is now having an issue with, crazy enough, some other bird flu outbreak. It's just like, what next? Like, seriously, this sounds like a bad movie. Eden says, good morning. The UK is woefully inadequate with testing, only testing when symptoms bring you to the hospital. People are coughing. All the returning students must quarantine. Okay, let's talk about the self-quarantining. So yesterday, the government issued a reminder of what self-quarantining means. Now, on yesterday morning show, we went into some detail about social distancing and what that means. So someone wants to know, how do you protect your dogs? The same things that we're going to talk about now about protecting yourself is by and large how you protect anybody. Social distancing. Don't take your dog out and about to be around sick people. Simple. Leave your dogs home. So the looks like our internet providers are they're struggling, to say the least. So the government has said, listen, the chief medical officer mentioned it yesterday, that it seems like people don't fully comprehend what self-quarantining means and how to effectively self-quarantine. So for the almost 500 students that are returning from the UK alone, that does include students from the USA and other jurisdictions, you need to make sure that you are self-quarantining. So the idea behind self-quarantining is that you're going to stay home, restrict your exposure to other people. And by doing so, you are lessening the chances of spreading this virus potentially to other people. Because remember, you do not have to be showing any symptoms. You do not have to be sick in order to be a carrier of the COVID-19 virus, which also means that you don't have to be sick to pass it on to somebody else. So social distancing and self-quarantining, washing of hands frequently, using good, proper hygiene, those are the ways in which you can help to control the spread of this disease. So the time to self-quarantine at home is 14 days. Every single returning student, the government said, we want you to take this seriously. Don't feel like you're on a vacation or you're on a break and the first thing you want to do is come and have a little liming session, a link up with your friends. Instead, you need to self-isolate yourself at home for 14 days. Now listen, you come back, you've got other siblings, you've got a mom, you've got a dad, you've got cousins living in your household. As soon as you return and you self-isolate, sorry, your entire household has to self-isolate or self-quarantine with you. So I want to say that again. Returning students, you're back from university. Anyone coming back after the airport is shut down, because only Caymanians will be allowed in, you have been instructed by the Cayman Islands government, if you've been overseas, and pretty much everywhere in the world now has it, you need to self-isolate for this 2-week period of time. Whether you're showing symptoms or not, it simply does not matter, because every single country now, the US, the UK, Canada, all of the world now has this. So you're not showing any symptoms, fine, that's great. Stay home for 14 days. If you're the parent of a returning student, you know that they are coming tomorrow, this afternoon, between now and Sunday. Prepare for your entire family to self-quarantine. Go do your grocery shopping, and get whatever supplies you need, get your affairs in order so that you can self-quarantine. Even within the same household, members of your household should limit their contact and maintain a 6-foot distance from the individual who is coming back. Now, sometimes that's hard, depending on how big your household is. You're sitting on a sofa, your sofa may not be 6 feet long, but you gotta think about this. Have those students primarily stay in their room, but of course they've got to disinfect their room. They've got to disinfect surfaces. Like I keep saying, there's so many surfaces, even in our personal household, that we all touch: light switches, door handles, the door handles and on the fridge, in the kitchen. Wipe all of these surfaces down. So self-isolating and maintaining social distancing is one of the key ways in which we can limit the exposure of other people to the COVID-19. Postal services. I just want to review some of what has transpired yesterday. So Postal Services, International Postal Service, has now basically come to a halt. The courthouse has taken measures to ensure that people will be engaging in social distancing. So reception services are going to be unavailable. If you have a court date, you're still required to attend. So don't not show up and then get arrested. That's not going to help you. But there will be measures that they have in place already. So ensure that you're aware of what those are. Staff at the court's office are not going to be touching any bundles, for example. So they will not be handling, like, I don't know if you've ever been to court, but when you go to court, they hand you a court bundle. They take it from the lawyers and they hand it to you. So they are now very much aware that money and documents, can have germs on them, can carry the virus. So court staff are not going to be touching those things. So they're all proceeding with very specific instructions. Cayman Airways has a new ticket office hours and booking procedures. So effective immediately, and this was yesterday, announced at 6:40 p.m., that agents at the Cayman Airways counter and ticket offices will not be making changes to existing reservations or issuing new tickets. So anyone who's looking to make a change or new ticket purchase, don't go to the ticket counter or ticket offices, because they do not want you infecting their staff. You now have to go through the Cayman Airways reservations call center or through the local travel agent or travel professional of your choice. So in other words, call them. This is where our advantages of living in the 21st century are extremely important. We have access to phones. We have access to emails. All of these things are critical ways in which you can self-isolate, maintain that social distancing, and still get your business done. Pay your bills online, folks. 949-2311. Cayman Airways, they have an 800 number, and they have a number that's totally toll-free in Jamaica. Contact them by phone. Go to the website. You can purchase your tickets online. Cayman Airways has also assured us, despite people saying that they were having some issues getting off island, they don't know if they were referring to another carrier, but as far as they are concerned, they have sufficient seats to get people at least to the key destinations that they travel to. So if you want to go to Miami and then jump from Miami to another hub, Cayman Airways is in a position to get you there. So please contact them directly about their services and making your reservations if you have to leave. Prison services. So there will be no visitors at the prison because, again, they are trying to contain this as much as possible. So if you have a family member who's incarcerated, they get their phone call, I'm afraid that you're going to simply have to live with that for now. There will be no other means of going in person to see them. So I want to make that very, very clear. The government indicated that the first batch of, I think it was 14 persons that they were awaiting test results on, that were in contact with patient 0 at Health City, have all come back negative thus far. And they will continue to get additional results in. DCI, Department of Commerce and Investment, their counter will be closed starting today to the public at 3 p.m. The Trade and Business Board meeting that's scheduled for yesterday was canceled, and that has been rescheduled for March the 31st, tentatively. And if you're looking to do express service or trade and business licensing, they cannot guarantee that at this particular time. We have to understand, the world over, I was watching the governor from New York yesterday talking about the implications of shutting down a city with, or metro areas of 1 point something million people. We don't even have that. So we can imagine the worldwide impact of this COVID-19. Major countries shutting down, airports, areas, kids. I mean, it's just crazy. So there will be a lot of government services that are simply not available. The Department of Counseling Services has changed their operational hours. So again, if you rely on family resource services, residential centers, counseling centers, please make contact with them. I would say any government agency at this particular point, make contact with them so that you can see precisely what is going on, what their specific restrictions and changes will be. Civil servants are getting paid early. You should have gotten paid today, I believe. So your money probably was there last night. So government has made that available to civil servants. So we certainly appreciate that. I'm just having a look at the other announcements here. So CBC, so someone was mentioning about border control and work permits. Here's how this is going to go down. So the airport we know is now closing for a period of 3 weeks, starting on Sunday, the 22nd of March through Sunday, the 12th of April. In order to assist people who are leaving, the visitor extension process has been temporarily varied for visitors and work permit holders. So if you are a visitor or a work permit holder and your permission to remain on island expires between the 22nd and the 31st of March, you will not be required to submit for a visitor extension. Just make your arrangements to leave. You do not have to present yourself to CBC or take any other action between those dates. So again, this is if you're on island and your stamp says that you're going to expire between the 22nd of March and the 31st of March. Normally, you'd be considered an overstayer. You'd be here illegally if you did not go and get that visitor extension application submitted. They're waiving that. Departing, this is important, work permit holders who have permission to continue working that will expire on or before the 22nd of March are also not required to submit a visitor extension applications. You're encouraged and instructed to depart the island before the airport closes. So outbound flights will continue until Sunday, the 22nd. So folks, today's Wednesday. If you need to get off island, make your reservations. Some people were inquiring about people going off island. How are they going to get the money to do so? Well, one of the things that immigration has in place, which to the best of my knowledge is still in place, is you need to ensure that when someone comes here on a work permit, that they actually have a return ticket. So no one is supposed to enter the Cayman Islands on a one-way ticket unless you're a Caymanian. So if you're a resident, you're a Caymanian, like a permanent resident, and you're a Caymanian, you can enter in a one-way ticket. Work permit holders are supposed to come with a round-trip ticket for situations like this. In the event that something happens, they at least can get back home. So now is the time for you to activate that second leg of the return ticket. So again, judicial administration, court office, they've got certain things in place. The key things that were announced at yesterday's press conference, in case you missed it, starting on Sunday night, 11 p.m., so like midnight, bars, salons, spas, public swimming pools will all be closed. So if you need a touch up on your hair, if you need to get your nails done for God knows what reason, because you're self-quarantining, you're staying at home, but you still want to look good, please do so before Sunday. But keep in mind that even before Sunday, you want to exercise social distancing. So you don't want to go in a salon that's like packed with people and you can barely move. So I need a few things done at the salon. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call them and say, not just do you have an appointment, but do you have an appointment time that there's not a whole lot of other people in this salon? Because that's what we all need to be doing right now. You don't need to go in there with a full salon. So self-quarantining for all of the returning residents that are traveling into Cayman, symptomatic or not. The flu hotline, 1-800-534-8600. There are private physicians that are shutting down their offices. I want to mention this because someone actually said this to me. Private physicians are saying, well, they don't want anyone coming into their offices with flu-like symptoms, which is crazy. But this is the reality. When they're a private doctor, they can certainly say that. And this is going to put a real undue burden on the government facilities and the government flu clinic So Health City is essentially out of commission. Doctors Hospital has said if you have the flu or flu-like symptoms, please don't come and see them. And so the HSA has suspended visiting and non-essential services to try to deal with the situation. But if you have flu-like symptoms, you probably want to try to call the flu hotline first to have a bit of a consultation with them to see what the next step would be, how serious and severe your symptoms are, and so on. Event mortgages, we were talking about that earlier. People need to contact their mortgage companies. Someone did send me a message saying that their mortgage company informed them that because they had taken a pay holiday, I think it's what it's called, where basically you skip a payment. And I think a lot of the banks offer that as like a optional thing that you can do normally, like around Christmas time when people are overspending. But because they took that holiday in December, we're only here in March, they only offer one per year. And that they were told that, unfortunately, they are not eligible to essentially take another holiday. And again, this is where you got to think in advance, like none of us could have predicted this, but Christmas shopping is not an emergency situation. So I know people every single year at Christmas, they take advantage of that holiday, not realizing that something catastrophic could very well happen during the rest of the year. And then they have no options with the bank because the bank's like, well, you've already used up your once per year situation. Someone's asking if government is going to help with preschool teachers with salaries. The government did indicate that they're going to be giving a one-time payment to the elderly of $400 and something. It was less than $500. They're making arrangements with anyone who needs NAU or NAU assistance. It does not appear that the government is in a position to help out private citizens with salary substitutions. And again, this is, we live in a tax-free jurisdiction, supposedly. And if government simply doesn't have the money, where are they going to get it from? Although we do live in the most expensive place in the world as well. So government is not subsidizing any private salaries. So I do not know what to tell you about preschool teachers. Obviously, if there are no preschools, parents are not thinking that they have to pay for those times that no one's in. And this person says that some of the preschools can't afford to pay their staff. Even pension could give some help because government are throwing with them, because people are throwing with them for over 11 years. I'm not sure what that means. But yes, I would not be waiting on government to assist with that. What about people who are on trial in court and not working? I'm not sure if the trial and not working are connected. NAU has asked that people contact them preferably by phone. Don't be going in. They have some relaxed, I think they can process your applications now in an expeditious manner by phone or by email. So contact NAU in those ways. Government should invite a member of the Bankers Association to sit on press panel. I tell you what, Charlene, that's actually an excellent idea. I don't think government will necessarily do that, but we will extend an invitation to them if one of them wishes to, as a representative of the Bankers Association, come on our show and maybe have a chat with the people. We do have Mr. Woody Foster booked. We just had to change it yesterday, like I said, because we had a situation in the family. And I do know that Mr. Raul Nicholson Cole from Digicel was also going to be coming on the program to talk about telecoms and that sort of thing. Renita says Sandra government had $2 million to build a parking lot at Smith Cove, but can't help their people. The government is really disgusting. And listen, I agree, because the government has spent, by their own admittance, some $9 million already on the port project, which we, the people, by and large, never wanted. So that wasted money, that $9 million at situations like this, that money could really be helpful. But you know, governments get really creative. Like when they're trying to get you to vote for them, they claim that they have a surplus. They claim that they've saved all of this money. But when it comes to, okay, well, if you have all of this money, put it to use, help the people, then it's like, oh, right. Well, you see, that surplus doesn't really exist in the real world. It's a surplus on the books only kind of a situation. So I'm no accounting expert, but I do know that they seem to get very creative. So someone said you have people who've been made redundant and it's very impossible for them to leave. What happened to those people? What their permit canceled? So the premier said, listen, if your permit has been canceled, you need to leave. That's the law. And you're supposed to have a return ticket. Is pension going to be waived for next 2 months? So we haven't heard anything about that. But if people aren't working, there will be no pension payments anyway. Having said that, a lot of people have been asking about, will the government consider giving us access to our pension funds so that we can utilize that? I think one of the biggest issues with that is it takes you at least 90 days to get any sort of a payout from your pension fund in any event. So it's not something that you can just go in right now and say, hey, you got $5,000 of my money, put it in my hand. That's not how it happens. And then, of course, logistically speaking, to have a run on pension funds could impact the overall liquidity of some of these companies and have other implications that we're not really fully thinking about. Alric Lindsay says, I believe the below was the message sent out by the Cayman Islands Bankers Association, potential service and challenges with the detection of the COVID-19. Okay, so we shared that already. So basically, contact your bank. Donovan says, Carol, you're right. Pension board, forgive we some money out with pension for true. Like I said, that takes at least 3 months. So that's a bit of a problem. One person, Marie, says, I know of 2 people who've just had their rent raised on them recently. One before the lockdowns began and one literally just yesterday. This can't be legal for landlords to do. Raise the rent for people who simply can't work because of the lockdowns. Both of these people work in the service industry and can't work due to the quarantines. So again, we have no rental protection. We have no rental laws in this country, and that is really, really wrong. And I'm very, very disappointed to hear that that has happened. And I think the premier needs to address this. We have sent some questions through to GIS for them to ask at the press briefing today, which we will live stream on our Facebook page and here on Instagram for you guys who are on Instagram at 2:00. Hopefully they get started in time today. So someone else is in agreement with pension. We have asked the pension question. We've submitted it, so we'll see what that is. Okay, I think I need to wrap this up because I need to go take a sinus tablet. Someone says, why can't Alden donate to the food bank? I'm sure he probably will. For an island with arguably some of the wealthiest natives, it is sad that these multimillionaires don't step up. For the people, the lack of philanthropists in Cayman is disgusting. Someone else did inquire about, and I don't know anything about this food organization. Let me just see this message. They were asking about some food charity, Feed Our Kids or something. And they want to know, they said that charity was feeding like several hundred kids a day. Is that charity going to be continuing? I don't know anything about that charity. So for those of you who do know who Feed Our Kids is, can you send me some information on how to contact them so that we can find out if children will still be getting access to those meals or how that's being done? Because I don't, like I said, I don't know anything about that organization. Good morning. Mitch Lee Olive says, I have a concern. It's about the Foster's Deli. Okay, I actually want to address this. I went to Foster's yesterday morning and I was hoping to have Woody on at 11 o'clock, but like we said, we had a family situation where I had to cancel that. And they have now, there's no more salad bar. There's no more self-serving of food. And even with the porridge and the soups, the staff will serve it for you to try to reduce the amount of potential cross-contamination and people handling, the spoons and anything else. So in terms of Foster's, I can't speak to any other grocery store yet, but I would assume they're probably all doing something similar. And I did take some pictures and I meant to put those up, but yesterday it was just, a bit of a down day for us. So I will put those up because I think it's useful to get the word out there. So they have taken certain preventative measures already in relation to that. Someone's asking me to check my WhatsApp. It's going to have to be after the show. It's a little difficult to do all of that during the show. Okay, so Alex says, thank you for mentioning Cayman Food Bank, also known as the Good Samaritan Food Bank. Woody Foster of Foster's is one of the key people that makes this work. Periodically, stations are set up outside of places like Cost You Less and Foster's, and there's a lot of kind members of the public who donate items during these food drives. The food bank then provides items to pantries at some schools who don't already have pantries to assist students who don't have enough money for lunch, and also to Meals on Wheels, which assists seniors. Children at various schools are also donating items to assist their fellow students. To make a donation or to sign up as a volunteer, please contact Philip Hire at 926-6111. So again, that number has been scrolling on our screen for a little bit. So do give Philip a call. Topaz says, I just want to say I'm really grateful to CMR for keeping us up to date during this crisis. Nice to have a reliable channel for all of the breaking news in the country. Someone else is asking, how is the situation in Cayman? So what we can say is the situation is probably like a lot of other places in the world. We are preparing for a rough ride over the next couple months, and we just got to hold it down and try to be there for each other. Okay, someone is asking about jury duty for April the 1st. Rosita, we will inquire. It's probably still a little bit early to know exactly what's going to happen there. But we do, as we said earlier, know that there are some changes with how the court is handling certain things. So we will get you those details and just continue to update people. If we can continue with these morning briefings, I think they're helpful to kind of just understand what transpired the day before. We have so Stacy has said, don't know if you mentioned it before, but information on the court's new policy can be found at judicial.ky. So thank you for that. So again, people are making use of websites, emails, phone numbers, all of the things that we have technology wise. Someone made a really good comment that government should ensure that certain websites are open to the public without any data restrictions. So even if you don't have data, that you should still be able to access those websites. I don't know how technically that works, but I think it's a great idea in principle. Someone said, what about the beaches? So the premier did mention that that someone had a beach party or something over the weekend. And again, I gotta go get a leave, or sorry, what are my sinus tablets called? Anyway, the idea is, even in open air situations, especially since we now know that this virus can actually stay in the air, it's probably not a good idea to have a beach party and hanging out with a bunch of people. So, a trip to the beach with some fresh air, in principle, sounds like a great idea. But if everyone is doing that, then that kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. Clinton says, as far as I'm aware, you don't need a return ticket if you're in a work permit. You have to pay $200 fee. No. Let me explain this to you. It's not for situations like this at all. So, sorry, guys. My sinuses are like, I can't now. So many, many years ago, there was a repatriation fee. And this is something that has changed. And I'm just going to get some hand wipes and wipe my hands right away. And then after this, I'm going to go wash my hands and disinfect my keyboard and mouse. Although I'm the only people using these things in my household, I'm still going to do that. So many years ago, there was a repatriation fee. Government did away with the repatriation fee. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but you used to, when you took out a permit, you used to have to basically pay the Cayman Islands government the equivalent of whatever it would take to return that person home. So if they're from the Philippines and an average ticket's like $1,200, that was your repatriation fee. The government did away with the repatriation fee. They still require a round trip ticket. So you're not really supposed to be coming here on a one-way ticket. And what they replaced the repatriation fee with is a standard across the board $200 fee that goes into some like fund. And what that is for is emergency situations. So my understanding is, if it's like if someone dies and there's no other way to get them home, that fund could be potentially utilized. So it's for very limited circumstances. I also believe that they use it to assist with the repatriation of Cuban nationals when they come in illegally into the country. So that is how that's used. So no, there is no repatriation fee that still exists. So Charlene is asking about a question she sent. I do know that I forwarded that question on. Give me 1 second, Charlene. Let me just double check if I got a response. I did send that question. I think, yeah, this was the one about the elderly with underlying health issues or asked to self-quarantine. Is there anyone in the medical profession visiting their home or other resources available to them? Just curious. I have not received a response on that question as yet, but it was sent through. So I'm going to just follow up with that. We did have some nursing students saying that they're concerned about the measures being placed for nursing students at UCCI School of Nursing. Second, third, and fourth year students are being asked to stay in high risk areas such as general practice and accident and emergency critical care units and various other units in the hospital where there'll be a high flow persons in and out who is showing signs and symptoms of flu-like symptoms, putting students and their families at risk. Many have elderly persons who live with them, such as grandparents, etc., and students are not being paid, but are expected to place themselves and family members at risk of COVID-19, being mindful that they will be in and out of the hospital and possibly spreading pandemic virus. Though UCI has officially closed, the nursing students are being told by the director to simply take precautions. We reached out to the HSA and they informed us that they are not obviously, they don't manage that. That's done by the university. And they do attend the HSA for clinical experiences as part of the agreement between the two institutions, but that was a question for UCCI. So we will be sending that question on to UCCI for a response, but that makes absolutely no sense at all. So hopefully those clinical students will be getting a break for the next 2 months. Pension deductions, there's been nothing, Sue, about that as yet. We will put forward that question as well. Marie says, well, if they claim they have no money, how are we going to build a port? Well, they claim the cruise line was going to build it, and the cruise line is going to be having financial issues, just like the airlines and just like everybody else here shortly. And Olive says the repatriation fee is so it's no longer a repatriation fee. I forget technically what they call it, but there is a $200 across the board fee, and that is non-refundable. So that does not go towards helping you really with a ticket. All right, folks. We've been going at it now for 2 hours. For almost 2 hours. So, oh yeah, Stacy says it's called Feeder Future. So we'll find out about that, if they're going to be continuing that or not. Okay, folks. So information on some charities in Cayman can be found. Thank you, Alric. He's provided a link at the CaymanParent.com website. The public bus should work without air conditioning and keep all windows open. Well, someone else mentioned about the public buses, and that's a little bit of a tricky situation because, again, on a public bus, the government has not yet shut down the public bus system, but it is challenging to, it's very challenging to keep social distancing on a bus because they're not that big. And again, people may have no vehicles and they will require public transport. All right, folks, I'm going to go take an allergy tablet and try to get my sinuses cleared. Sometimes I hate doing it, but the ENT gave me like a nasal eradication thing. So I'm going to try that today. Probably going to need it. Some family time this morning. And I just want to encourage all of us to, during these very difficult times, to just try to be a little bit kinder to everyone that we encounter at the end of the day. It's going to be a trying time for us. We will certainly do our part here in this show in terms of trying to inform you of what's going on, keep you abreast with useful information, and as we get information, we try to verify it, put it out there. I wanted to express my condolences to the family of Mr. Lewis. Many of you knew him as someone who worked at the tire shop forever. And he was always there. He's a JP in the community. So willing to help people get their travel documents signed and so on. And he has passed away after, I understand, an illness. So I wanted to extend our condolences to his family. And again, we have just lost a family member as well. Not here in Cayman, but you know, these times are challenging. And then on top of it, to lose someone adds a layer of difficulty. You can't travel for funerals right now. You have to kind of hold the fort down. So it's going to be a trying time for a lot of people, but I just wanted to extend my condolences to Mr. Lewis's family during this time, and anyone else really who has lost a loved one. That was Mr. Lewis Ebanks at the little tire shop right there across from the Jake Scott intersection. All right, folks. We'll be back. I will let you guys know if we can get Mr. Woody Foster on later today. I'm hoping that we can, because he is the president of the Chamber of Commerce, so he might be able to answer some questions in relation to that. He's obviously the owner of Foster's, so some of you may have some Foster's related questions. Someone wants to know if it's safe to buy jerk on the road. Listen, I mean, I would say that at the end of the day, you know, if people sell food on the road, you just have to be mindful of the social distancing that's being kept at those stands. As always, anybody at any time that you're buying foods from, you need to make sure that you're confident in their sanitation and hygiene practices. We shared a video the other day of a lady that was not in Cayman who was making like cupcakes or something. And she was taking the cupcakes, she had on gloves, but then she was, to separate the cupcakes, she was like blowing in them, like using her mouth to blow on them. That's not someone that you want to buy anything from. It's those types of practices that spread diseases and cross-contaminate a lot of areas. And, you know, like I said on yesterday's show, we had a lady who had traveled through the airport, and she had some concerns about how airport staff, CBC staff, you know, the airline staff, and all the people who work in the airport were coming in contact with people and not, again, really understanding how cross-contamination works. And so we have to really think, you know, listen, if you work in the food industry and you've not taken a course recently on cross-contamination or how to be safe, whatever, YouTube is your friend. YouTube has a video on everything by experts. Go on YouTube. Look at how to handle food when you're dealing with the public, proper food safety, food preparations. You know, these are all the things that you should be doing as someone who works in that industry. But certainly, at the end of the day, you are encouraged at times like this to really, really, really amp up your skill level, to amp up what it is that you're doing. So I would sincerely encourage anyone who is working with the public or handling food to think carefully about how you're doing that. Right now, in terms of, I agree with Charlene, I would not be eating out a whole lot. You know, we do want to be supportive of restaurants, and there are restaurants who will be offering like takeout services and stuff like that. But, you know, most of us need to be trying to stay home at the end of the day. Foster's Grocery Store has taken certain measures to try to decrease the number of people who are touching their things. And I think that's really a great idea. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. 2 o'clock, there should be another press briefing. We will definitely have it streaming live on our Facebook feed. And We had discovered what the issue was yesterday with the audio. So I think we're good in terms of that. We should not have that problem. So we'll put up the link for you to share with your friends. Of course, it's available on other formats as well. But we do appreciate you guys tuning in to CMR to listen to our, broadcast that we're having here. So stay tuned, folks. Enjoy the rest of your morning going into the afternoon hours. If anything breaking happens, we will certainly keep you abreast of what's going on in your communities. And I see tons of WhatsApp messages that have come through. So I will go through and have a look at some of those as well. And I know you guys on Instagram and elsewhere have been sending me tons of messages. So I know I've got a little bit of reading to do here today. But stay safe, folks. Self-quarantine, social distancing, disinfect, sanitize. And in my case, I'm going to take a sinus tablet. Have a good one.